So NBA 2K20 has changed a lot over the year. Obviously, if you guys have been a fan of me for a while, you know I will be doing a documentary based on the entire year, and that will probably be out in the first week of August, assuming 2K stop releasing cards then. Either way, it will be out sometime in early August. Also, the meta's changed. The meta has constantly changed throughout the year, whether it be from patches from 2K, stuff that 2K have done, or whether it be new cards that they released that have just completely changed the entire landscape of the game. In this video, we are going to be talking about 12 cards that have completely changed the game, because I could not narrow this list down, but 10 sounds a lot better. So you're going to see 10 cards as the title of the video. 10 sounds better than 12, but it will be 12. So these are not the best cards in the game. And I'm going to say this right now, just as a bit of a warning. You are not going to see Kareem or Wiseman or LaMelo Ball or Magic Johnson, because none of those have really changed the way the game is played. Are they the best cards in the game? Yes, they are. But did they change the entire meta of the game? I'm going to say no. I don't believe they did. But anyway, now we are going to get onto it, and these are the 10 players I believe changed the game, and why they changed it, and when it was. So, well, 12 players, sorry. First player we are going to be looking at is one of the very first cards, the starter pack cards, and it's Derrick Rose Ruby. So, we did not know how to play this game. We did not know the meta. Stuff that is known now was not known back then. People didn't know about the glitchy behind the backs, dribble glitching. People didn't know about tweening up and down the floor. But what people did know was that the quick first step badge could get you auto blow-bys. We figured out within about 3 or 4 weeks of the game coming out that the clamps badge stopped quick first step going by every single time, but we didn't know it day one. One card, the card that defined the early game meta, this card and one other card defined it. So day one was this guy right here. So everyone was able to get these guys evoed up. And the thing with Derrick Rose was that he had quick first step, gold, a good dunk of 85, as well as that he had 93 speed. He used to literally just turbo. He used to just turbo straight to the basket every single time and just dunk. He would dunk non-stop. People would go and sit in 5 out, and he would just dunk completely non-stop. So people tried to find a way initially to stop that. And this card initially became just a rim protector, and also people used to sit in the zone to stop people rim running to the basket, because that was the original meta of the game. And the guy that everyone used early on in the game was this dude right here, Mirasan. Day one Mirasan. When he was on the floor, you had to run everything through him. You had to give him the ball because he would take up too much space. There was two different tactics in this game. There were the rim runners, the guys that would sprint to the basket and try dunk, and then there was the guys that would just dump the ball into Mirasan. A broken post hook, and after about 2 games, or 2 days, he actually became the fastest player in the game. He was the tallest player, he had the widest player build, and 2K did something I don't know what they did with speed, but they made him the fastest player in the game. So he was able to just completely dominate early on. So Mirasan, you were seeing him in almost every team. There were no real counters, because the only way you can counter a guy like Mirasan if they're sitting in a zone is by getting together a bunch of shooters. However, there was no real great big shooters in the game. There was Isaiah Hartenstein, Karl Anthony Towns, guys like that, who didn't have quick draw, and that was like their biggest downside. If you don't have quick draw, you can't really be an elite shooter in this game. However, that was soon to change very early. While Mirasan was still the player of choice for most people, there was another guy who became another option. This guy was seen in almost every team, and he was the first of the big guys that could pull out Mirasan, the first pick and pop big. And it was actually, is he an amethyst reward or emerald reward? I'm not entirely sure what reward he is in, but he was a guy that was very early on the boards in TT offline or TT online. He was the very first TT online board player, and so many people got this card. It was Channing Frye. What separated Channing Frye from the other cards? Yeah, he was the guy that I've named something after him, the Channing Frye syndrome. A guy who had an inability to hit a shot unless it was green. However, He's had Hall of Fame catch and shoot and pick and popper, which meant at the time he was a great pick and pop jump shooter. No one was running the Hawks or point freelance, so most people were in just normal freelancer, which meant that he doesn't spot up on hash. He spot on the 3-point line or the corner. One big problem was the Hall of Fame, or was the straight arm badge, gold steady, but he had gold quick draw. And at that stage of the game, I think he had gold quick draw on all of his cards. That was a game changer. That was an absolute game changer. Gold quick draw, as well as a 99 3-pointer at most coaches. Yeah, he couldn't do much else. Yeah, he couldn't handle the ball. His block was decent. Yeah, he was super slow. And when I mean super slow, as soon as they changed the speed patch so that everyone didn't feel the same speed and the height made a difference, he was super slow. But you know what? He was used mainly, not because he was anything spectacular, because simply he was a counter to the Mirasan card. So early game was defined, in my opinion, by those 3 cards. Because initially we had the Rim Runners, Derrick Rose. There was a lot of other good cards. There was the Terrence Ferguson's, the first Clamps player. There was the counter to Derrick Rose. That was Charlie Ward. There was guys like Darrell Armstrong, Stephon Marbury, who were just better versions of Derrick Rose, but didn't really affect the meta of the game too much. They were just better versions of what we already had. Then, obviously, Mirasan was still always going to be a giant. There was Rick Smits, who I believe was a better version of Mirasan with a mid-range shot, which is probably better Mirasan. So he was a very, very good card as well, but again, wasn't a game definer. And then we had a bunch of good shooting bigs, but again, they were just better versions of what we already had. One thing with the wings in the game at the start was there was 2 ways that you could go with your wings. Well, there was 3 ways you could go. There was the Desmond Mason route, which was the Derrick Rose type player. And that was your ultra athletic guys, weren't the greatest shooters, but if needed to could hit a wide open jumper. Your ultra athletic guys that will just dunk on everybody. Or you could go with what was the most popular thing to run with, was actually with some of these guys. I'm not entirely sure if I have these guys, but with Nick Anderson or Wally Zerbiak. These guys right here, where they were quick draw shooters with range extender gold. Couldn't really play defense, but they could hit shots from deep, which was a big, big thing in this game. Or, if you couldn't have success with either of those, you could go with a Kawhi Leonard, a Paul George, a Terrence Ferguson, a guy who had clamps, but couldn't really give you too much on offense except hitting the occasional wide open jump shot. So every single type of wing in the game had a flaw. And then if you guys watch my videos at the start of the year, the next guy I'm going to be talking about is a guy who I called the first perfect wing in this game. Not that he was going to be spectacular, because in reality he wasn't. I call him a perfect wing because he had no flaws. And this was Prime Series Paul George. And Paul George, there was only, up until Christmas Eve, there was only 4 cards that I called perfect wings. And what I used to call a perfect wing was a card who had at least gold clamps, at least gold range extender, at least gold quick first step. And there was a 4th badge. There was a 4th badge. I can't remember. Sorry, he only had silver quick first step. Some version of quick first step. I can't even remember. And quick draw range, quick first step, and clamps. Yeah, they were the 4 badges. There was a stage in the game, if you had those 4 badges, I would have called you a perfect wing. Paul George, shoot the 3 ball really well, great dunker. With that silver quick first step back when not everyone had clamps, he was blowing by people, had good speed. This card was a game changer because every single wing only did one thing well, but he did everything well when he came out. He came out early as well. I think he was in like the 2nd batch of these cards. He came out really early. And even though he came out, I'm pretty sure, in October, between then and Christmas Eve, obviously on Christmas Eve, 2 way better cards in Ray Allen and Tracy McGrady came out. We'll get onto one of them later. But they came out with, between that time, there was Kobe Bryant, there was Eddie Johnson, and Jimmy Butler Diamond. They were the only cards that I would have called quote-unquote perfect wings. Guys with range extender, clamps, quick first step, and quick draw. That was it. For months, they were the only players we had. So that is why Paul George was a meta-defining player, because he was a guy that could do absolutely everything. Then we are going to go quite a while. Like, none of these cards, yeah, Giannis was alright, but like, he was good and all, but was not a game changer. Dwight Howard, as much as I would have loved Hito or James Harden or something to be a game changer, they weren't. Heck, even Blake Griffin I wouldn't call a game changer. However, on the 13th of December, I'm pretty sure I'm right with that date. Was it the 13th? I just remember this because I recorded my Worth It video for these guys while I was in a hotel room, and in the middle of recording, JD Crossover walked in. Neither of us realized we were both booked into the same hotel room for the 2K event. But yeah, so it was, first of all, we're going to go, it's from these flashbacks. And first player we're going to talk about is Ben Simmons. So Ben Simmons was the first really good tall point guard. Yeah, there was Penny Hardaway, but I'm telling you right now, Penny was so garbage at that time. He was so garbage. Like, he had like 70 lateral quickness and no clamps. He was terrible. Like, you could get rubies better than that Penny Hardaway. They had to update that Penny like 3 times throughout the year. But this Ben Simmons card, yeah, he can't shoot now. He's definitely outdated. But at the time, he was 6'10". He had a great dunk. He had unbelievable dunking. He could speed by everybody. He had elite defense. And again, we have to take into account that, actually, sorry, there was another perfect wing before Christmas other than the Fordham. There is one guy we're talking about a bit later, but I played that guy at power forward. And again, Simmons, unbelievable rebounder, super speed, super good lateral quickness for the time. As well as that, Hall of Fame quick first step, intimidator. He had Hall of Fame clamps, did he? No, he didn't. He had goal clamps, but at the time that was really good anyway. And he had, at the time, 40 badges, which was great. So this guy right here, yeah, he had a negative. He had a downside, but he was a 6'10" point guard, and he was the first real good giant. However, even if you look at 250k, there was still a weakness in this card. It wasn't until a guy we're going to talk about a little bit later that there was a flawless giant card in the game. Then was another guy that came out the same day, who I think was an even bigger meta-defining player, and it's Lamar Odom. So Lamar Odom to this day is still usable in Unlimited. He's not great, but he's usable. He was 6'10", had 47 badges, which was unheard of at the time. Yeah, he only had 7 Hall of Fames. He had every badge at least gold. I played him at power forward, which is why I can't remember, which is why I wasn't calling him a perfect wing. He was the best small forward in the game. And it wasn't even close. He was the best power forward in the game. Heck, he was probably the best card in the game. He was about 40, 50 KMT because he was so easy to pull. His stats for the time were unbelievable. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, they're not great now in hindsight. They were unbelievable at the time. So, why I think Lamar Odom changed the game? Obviously, Simmons changed the game because he added the giant point guards into it. Why I think Odom changed the game was it set a precedent for 2K. Because Odom was not the biggest player in this set. This was the first, like, ultra juiced, can do absolutely everything card in the game that did not have steady shooter as far as I remember. He was unbelievable in every single way, as well as being 6'10". And not only that, he was not the standout pink diamond god tier level card. So it set a precedent for 2K that they had to juice up cards even if they were only diamond tier. Then we had a while like, yeah, we had the Giannis card, who was literally like a mixture between Odom without range and Ben Simmons. He was great. Giannis was absolutely brilliant. If you guys don't know, when you won the 17 games Spotlight Series for this one, you got a Giannis card. Then New Year's Resolution came out. You got Hito, who was like a worse Lamar Odom. You got Pettit, who wasn't great. Gilbert Arenas, who was just like, again, Derrick Rose point guard, Baron Davis point guard. I don't think they necessarily changed the game. They were really good cards. I don't think they were game changing. And we honestly did not get for a while. Actually, New Year's Resolution, sorry, they were after this card. Cream series came out the kind of like the 20th of December, thereabouts, and a few days later we actually did get two majorly game-changing cards. So there was Ray Allen, but the guy I'm going to be talking mostly about is Tracy McGrady. Still, to this day, 83,000 MT. 83k to this day. T-Max, he was a 6'8" 2 guard. He had 44 badges. 26 of them gold, 18 Hall of Fame, which was unheard of at the time. He had half range extender, half clamps, half quick first step. Again, at the time, they were the 3 most vital badges because not everyone had clamps. We have to remember, at this stage of the game, not every card had clamps. Very few wings, in fact, had clamps. And the ones that did have clamps couldn't play offense. So if you were on a budget, you were either going out with a full clamps lineup that couldn't really play offense, or you were going out with an offense lineup where Tracy McGrady would score every single time. There was also the behind the back in the game, with T-Mac being 6'8", pulling off the explosive behind the back. The space he created was unbelievable. He was the best dunker in the game. He was the best defensive wing in the game. He did everything. He was the best shooting wing in the game. At this time, it was before half quick draw. This card was the best, literally the best guard in the game at everything. He was the first player that he was the first player that I used to come up against and think, I've lost. Or, oh damn, I really don't want to play this card. There was no other card up to this, except maybe that Simmons card. But he had a weakness. I just sit back on him. T-Mac was the first card that I used to be really, really worried about playing. He was god tier. And like, I'm not entirely sure. Day one Mirasan was the thing. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar right now is in the argument. Day one Mirasan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and probably T-Mac from his release to the behind the back patch are the three best cards for their time in this game. And the difference is that normally I'm just like, oh yeah, he just does a few things better than everybody else, but he was the best at everything. He was the best at everything in the game. It was madness. So I have to put him on this list. It was nothing in particular that he changed, but he was just the best at everything. Then we have the 3-point hunters best player. Yeah, Tony Parker was good and all, but when you saw this guy, you knew, like, for anyone who used the 3-hunt, this guy was the game changer. Dwayne Wade Pink Diamond. So he was kind of expensive, cheap again, on and off. He had the fastest release in the game. I actually could not use this guy because I wasn't used to his release. I just straight up wasn't. It took me a while to get used to it, and once I got used to his release, which was probably around March time, this card was ridiculous. I think he was out the week after 250k, start of February, that he came out, or the very end of January. He was the guy that everyone ran at the point guard position. Because again, at the time, there was still people running non-clamps players at point guard. He had elite defense, he had clamps, he had half quick draw, the fastest release in the game at the time. He had an unbelievable dribble package. He was an unbelievable shot blocker, good sigs. This card was the guy that really started the 3-hunting meta. Yeah, Gilbert Arenas was used for it. Yeah, Tony Parker was used for it. But the fact is, I'm pretty sure Wade came out so close after Tony Parker that I'm going to credit Wade for really popularizing that strategy, because at the same time, Dwayne Wade could dunk on everybody, whereas Parker couldn't. So Dwayne Wade, without question, was a meta-defining, meta-changing player. Yeah, there was a better Dwayne Wade card that came out a couple of days later, I'm pretty sure, when Series 2 cards came out. The current Series 2 and people were able to get Dwayne Wade. Does not change the fact that this Dwayne Wade card was the original one, and the card that the vast majority of people used as their point guard if they were 3-hunting. Then we have got the guy that made people realize about tendencies. So at this stage in the game, most people were getting either gold or Hall of Fame clamps, and some people had a lot of great length in the 2-guard position. But there was one defensive player that was so much better than everybody else, and nobody knew why. It was Michael Jordan. This guy right here. I kind of liked the card. He was decent offensively, but at the time, he was never anything special on offense. So a lot of people kind of said, you know what, this card's good, not spectacular. And then as time went on, people were like, why is my opponent who's using Michael Jordan off-balling, but yet Jordan is stealing the ball every single time? And the reason for that is the steal tendency. It is the steal tendency, the on-ball steal tendency and pass interception tendency. This is the card. Yeah, it was a thing I'm pretty sure it's been a thing in Pro-Am, but this was the card that made people realize about it in MyTEAM. This was a card that, and I don't even think the quote-unquote comp top-level players were even using this card. It was figured out by random people in Unlimited that were coming up against Jordan being like, oh, this is going to be easy. And just randomly Jordan would just steal the ball 10 times off them when he was off-balling. This card absolutely changed everybody's opinion. This was the kind of catalyst for changing people's opinions on tendencies, for making people look at tendencies. And again, another card that's changed the meta. Changed the game of 2K20. Then we are going to the Flash Glitch cards. And when we're talking about the Giants of Simmons, yeah, you could argue LeBron James. I'm not. I think Giannis was the game changer. I didn't like LeBron from the start. I'm going to say this right now. I hated LeBron's release. I did not like that card from the start. But Giannis, man, Giannis was just ridiculous. Yeah, he didn't have a terrible release like LeBron. He had better badges than LeBron. He could glitch behind the back. And people realized that when Giannis was playing point guard. People figured out the dribble glitching behind the back very quickly with this Giannis. He had Interceptor, Intimidator. He had only gold range and gold quick draw, but at the time, that was fine. That was beyond fine at the time. Right now, yeah, maybe it's not the best, but this card, the fact that this card came out in March, and early March at that, and is still, to this day, a top 6 or 7 point guard. You can argue top 3 point guard. Heck, if you want to argue that this is the best point guard in the game, I don't believe it, but I'm not going to be that angry if you would say that. This guy could shoot. He could drive. He was the best defensive point guard in the game. He was the best slashing point guard in the game. And he could hit open jump shots. This card was ridiculous. As well as the fact he was a 6'11 point guard. Yeah, it kind of set a precedent for other cards. However, I don't think it set a precedent nearly as badly as this card did right here. Was Nikola Jokic ever good in 2K? No. This card, from launch, was never good. Why am I putting this card in a list of cards that define the meta to change the game? Because he is a center that could play point guard. Up until Jokic, any card that could play point guard was either a kind of small wing, like a J.R. Smith, or a not that tall wing, or somebody that you can argue at different stages in their career play point guard. For example, Giannis. Giannis has played point guard in his career. Ben Simmons, you could argue, is a point guard. But Jokic, that was the beginning of the end. That was the beginning of the end. Because I'm pretty sure the same day as Jokic came out, you can make this argument about another guy. I'm pretty sure Jokic and Hito came out the exact same day. I'm pretty sure they did. You can make the exact same argument about Hito, by the way, and I wouldn't question it. If you want to say Hito, Jokic, maybe Hito because a lot more people used them. I just think Jokic set a worse precedent because the fact that he was a center playing point guard. And then I don't think it was that much later. I think Hito was either in the Yao Ming. These were either in the Yao Ming or the Lonzo packs. I can't remember which one they were in. But the out of position packs came not too long after. Because obviously out of position came out the same day as the last Spotlight Sims. And that put Thon Maker at point guard. Fair enough, LeBron at point guard, but put Thon, it put Draymond at point guard. And once the out of position packs come in, you better believe that it's fair. It's a free-for-all. Like, it's fair game for anyone in any position. And I think that Jokic being a center that could play point guard was the real player that started off the KP at 2 guard, the Dirk at 2, Hakeem at the 3 type players we've gotten so far this year. And then last up, you can definitely make an argument that Kareem, because he's just the best player you've ever seen. However, I'm not going to say that Kareem was meta-defining, because Kareem was just a way better version of a card we already had. And that card was the Glitch Shaquille O'Neal. Glitch Shaq right now around 400k. Kareem is literally better at everything than this Shaq. I'm going to say this right now. However, at the same time, Shaq, when he came out, was the best slashing center in the game. He was the best defensive center in the game. He had half range extender. Yeah, he wasn't the best shooting center in the game, but he could shoot the ball really well. He was the best center by a mile. I was not sure. I was not sure if we were going to see a better center than this Shaq. Because this Shaq is actually better than the Shaq we saw from 2K19. Which is crazy. This Shaq was what really changed the game. Nobody was running point centers. Nobody was running their center as a point guard. Unless they had, say, Thon Maker. But, again, he had a big weakness that you could just blow by him. And then Shaq came out. This card changed everything. This card spawned so many people dribble glitching up and down the floor with their centers in this game. So for that reason, yeah, Kareem does it 10 times better. Kareem shoots from deep 10 times better than Shaq. It is not even a comparison. However, Shaq was the card that initially brought that playstyle into the game. Kareem perfected it, but Shaq was the guy who initially did it. Obviously, Wiseman, again, another guy that perfected that playstyle. So anyway, that is the video. These are guys that completely changed the game. They are not necessarily the best players. Heck, even for their time, they may not have been the best players. But these are cards that either, by bringing them into the game, set a precedent for things happening in the future, or cards that completely defined and changed the meta of NBA 2K20 MyTEAM. So anyway, that's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
I think you only love me 'cause I'm poppin'. This This a layup, this a rebound, then it's right, man. Tyson with the fade, not the hair, my hands rocking. When I link with ball point, you know